Hi, so I thought, as I said before, today maybe it's a little bit of time to talk about bicycles. I mean, I really love cycling, and for 2 years I haven't been on bicycle vacation. Hoping that happens this year. Maybe myself, maybe with Mummy, maybe with someone else. But before I'm going to go, in fact today, I'm going to be talking about the current state of Dutch and European bicycle manufacturers, and I was pretty much triggered immediately to make this video out of my volition. I am not sponsored by anyone. When I looked up about bankruptcies of bicycle manufacturers and saw quite a number of brands that went under. Let's talk about why the f that happened and what we, as in the people, the companies themselves and the government, could do to prevent this. So after bicycles have been invented over in Coventry in the UK, there has been a great video on that one. The Netherlands was seen as a pretty appealing market for bicycle manufacturers. I mean, our country is fairly small, mostly flat and densely populated even at the time. These three characteristics mean that distances are fairly short and therefore easy to do by bicycle. And so the Netherlands became home to many bicycle manufacturing companies, from the old like Gazelle to the newer ones like Van Moof. But at the moment it seems like a number of companies are declaring bankruptcy. What's going on here? So let's start with the first one, which is Van Moof, which was started in 2009 by Taco and Ties Carlier. The brothers wanted to reinvent the city bike to provide a good alternative for cars, which is a good idea. In the first couple of years they had like non-electric bikes and the company was quite successful. However, after a couple of years they started focusing on e-bikes, I think around the 2010s, and then 2020 came along to f over with something called the coronavirus pandemic. Yeah, I made a video about that one. There were more specifically a lot of production problems with the Van Moof S3 e-bike, and customers also noted problems with the availability of parts. The point is, Van Moof bikes don't really contain any standard parts. They just contain parts that Van Moof themselves design, and thusly they can only be repaired by Van Moof. This led to waiting problems, whereas reparations were quite often. So eventually there was also criticism about customer service, and in 2021 the company had a 70 million euro loss. And in 2023 they closed the entire European division, and on the 18th of July they went bankrupt. Fortunately, they did continue. They were bought out by Lavoie, which is a French company that makes luxury electric steps, and the only modern Van Moof products, other than the parts for the existing bikes, is the Lavoie Series 1 to be sold under the Van Moof brand. In addition, the Van Moof S5 or A5 is not going to disappear completely. They are going to be restarted this year, I hope. By the way, for that, the American side of Van Moof was never officially bankrupt. After that example, Quick also went pretty much bankrupt in 17th of November 2023. Hart Mobile, which is the Amsterdam owner of the brand, had problems with not only low demand and thusly higher debts, but also tax bills that weren't paid. There are a couple of other Dutch and also other European e-bike companies that are pretty much going bankrupt, but they are going to hopefully restart? Well, there were a couple of other problems with companies that almost went bankrupt, one of which is the Axel Group, which is a Dutch holding under which a couple European bicycle companies fall. However, it was almost going bankrupt in 2022 with co-work created Roberts & Co, KKR and Tesla together taking over the Axel Group. Kober Kravitz Roberts & Co, or KKR, is an American ultra-capitalist investment firm, of course. So why did many e-bike manufacturers go bankrupt nowadays? And more generally, bicycle manufacturers might be having a hard time nowadays. The Axel Group also holds a couple other brands, and maybe there are more companies that I haven't mentioned that are also struggling. Well, there were a couple of reasons, the first two of which have to deal with the current situation. First of all, there was the COVID-19 pandemic, which, though it spiked a surge in e-bike sales, that people started going sporting without having to go to the gym because those were locked down. Afterwards, there was a huge supply chain issue in chip companies, as you might have known. The other problem was the giant inflation that was caused by the pandemic and, of course, later by Vladimir Putin deciding to f*** over one of their neighbors. And thusly, the gas and energy supply issues. Everyone knows that one, so I'm not going to be talking too much about war because I hate it anyway. But it is definitely one of the reasons that the inflation started, and thusly people are being a bit more careful with expensive investments. Thusly, the e-bike manufacturers had it hard because e-bikes are generally more expensive than regular bikes. But there was something else, maybe a little bit down the rug. Apparently, a lot of Dutch bicycle manufacturers, I'm not saying all of them, but a number of them, have had parts made in Asia. Most notably is the People's Republic of China. And the problem with that is that in exchange for having economic presence there, you probably also have to share your manufacturing practices with the Chinese state. They come to inspect your factory regularly, of course, like every country should, but they're looking for the wrong things. Not for how it's going with the workers, even though they're called communist for some reason, but how the products are being made. And then they copy those designs for the electric parts anyway, at least, to try to get an overhead over the European R&D processes. Thusly, especially Chinese fat bikes start flooding the Netherlands and Europe and the world en masse, losing market share to Dutch and European e-bike manufacturers, which has also caused a little bit of collateral damage with regular bikes. I mean, the Axel Group holds a couple companies that make non-e-bikes as well, like Batavus and Koga Miyata, and it was almost going bankrupt in 2022. There was another problem for the Axel Group specifically again, because in 2024 the cargo bikes from the Axel Group under the name of Babu were paused due to the frames being too weak and breaking down for some weird reason. So up until this point we've seen that China shows two things. Firstly, and the most recent, is that direct state investment in companies can make them thrive under the conditions of the state, of course, really, if done right. And bicycle manufacturers at this moment, some kind of need them. We don't just want to give them over to private companies who do who knows what with the brand that they left, in addition to supporting their existing customers, and that could be it for some of them. than most investors, and unfortunately still keep producing bicycles at this moment that I'm recording this video. But we need a more long-term sustainable solution. Direct state investment by the Netherlands and Europe in its bicycle manufacturing plants can work, kind of like what China is doing, especially squared with electric cars. They're flooding the European market again, just like those fat bikes. But the second thing China is showing is another much bigger problem, of which this is merely a symptom, and that is massive amounts of car-dependent infrastructure. Across the world, in China, in the US, in many countries in fact, there's either geographic features or policy decisions that make it harder or impossible to ride a bike. We should eliminate those wherever possible. Well, geographic ones, we can't really do much about those without spending billions into building tunnels, bridges, and sometimes those don't even perfectly solve that problem. But the second one is a deliberate human action that we can solve through deliberate human action. That is, that many countries have decided to bulldoze areas that were designed for walking and in which bicycles could make perfect sense as well, to build areas in which only the car makes sense to take those distances, or buses or trains, but those were long discontinued as well, making long distance bike trips pretty much impossible to do over a short period of time, like we used to do during our bicycle vacations. But that creates not just the fact that there is no market really outside of Europe for bicycles and Japan, but another bigger issue, in fact multiple of them. Air pollution, noise pollution, and bumper-to-bumper traffic are also problems primarily caused by car-dependent infrastructure, and they should be solved. Maybe the European Union and perhaps even the World Bank should also be investing directly into more pedestrian and bike-friendly infrastructure, which not only helps our bicycle companies survive and thrive, but so does it do to the communities that they are being built in and their local economies. Like the chains that dominate car-dependent areas can easily compete with smaller businesses if those smaller businesses can get places where people just walk or cycle across them. And they can just stop by and get something that they would have otherwise bought at a convenience store or online in car-dependent places. We should probably also be solving the inflation problem as well, and that's also something I'm going to be talking about anyway, how to solve the inflation problems and the modern cost of living crisis in particular. At least not now, but if we at least, as a general public, raise attention to the lack of bicycle infrastructure across the world, despite the Chinese-American trade war going on right now, the European bicycle industry might as well at least be a little bit from disastrous to okay in its state, plus with the environment and the local communities. Anyway, see you another time. Bye bye. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you do, please give a thumbs up and share this video with all your friends, and perhaps consider subscribing to my channel. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.